Please welcome to the podium Michael Maurer.
Good afternoon, graduates, and congratulations to you and your families. Congratulations also to President McRobbie and his staff and faculty. The faculty especially for continuing to come up with innovative teaching techniques. I'll give you a suggestion, students, if you haven't already done so. Send a thank you to those teachers who made a difference in your life. That will make a difference in theirs. Provost Rebel, thank you for those wonderful words. I'm so glad my family is here to have listened to those words. Maybe my kids will do what I ask them to do or listen to my advice now for a while. It's a special honor. I am humbled, and I kind of thought maybe you'd say some nice things, President McRobbie and Provost Rebel, so I made sure that the family is here. But you know, one thing you left out, I have 9 grandchildren, and one of them is here today. So I would like to introduce Tyler Burnett, IU graduate degree class of 2026. Would you please stand? Tyler, you're the only student in history to be recognized at graduation before you took your first class. Tyler loves basketball, especially IU basketball. Well, I do too. It's been a great season with Coach Crean, a Sweet 16 appearance. Tyler was talking about the season and he said, "Papa, we beat Purdue." And I said, "Wait a minute, hold on, back up here a minute, Tyler. You mean to say that Purdue has a basketball team?" You know, commencement addresses are excruciating challenges in public speaking. I mean, half of you are thinking, who the heck is that guy? The words of Bono, the rock star, come to mind. He said, "I saw something in the paper last week about Kermit the Frog giving a commencement address somewhere. One of the students was complaining, 'I worked my ass off for years to be addressed by a sock.'" But some opportunities are not to be missed. Dean Robel mentioned that I graduated from this law school, and so I am so pleased to be asked to be back here. She mentioned also that I graduated in the class of 1967. Okay, so don't bother with the math. I am old. My cardiologist said to me the other day, "Mickey, if it tastes good, spit it out." Did your mother ever tell you that you should not bring up religion and politics in polite company? Well, since both of these taboo subjects are part of our current political dialogue, not only am I going to talk about them, but at the same time exhort you to discuss both topics as well. We can't afford to omit these discussions. Politics and religion are interwoven, particularly in Indiana, and are integral to the election decision-making process. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Do you care, and do you dare? Politics today is in a crisis mode. You know, public service is, and it ought to be, a high calling, a marriage of pragmatism and idealism. It's hard to escape the conclusion that much of what passes for contemporary politics is much debased. For example, a couple of weeks ago, Ted Cruz and Don Kasich met to divide up primaries like the mafia assigns their numbers rackets on the streets of New York. As a result, Governor Casey agreed not to campaign here, and that is demeaning to and hurtful to Hoosiers, but that's politics today. Has there been an erosion of civil discourse? Instead of issue-oriented discussion, the Republican Party presidential debates have been largely characterized by personal invectives, spousal attacks, and cruel innuendos. And we have rewarded clever but empty people who are good at taking enormously complex issues and summing them up in a way that appeals to one or another visceral prejudice. Scandal and sleaze has permeated campaign rhetoric. There is little respect for the leading presidential candidates of either party. Both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are burdened with huge negative numbers. According to a recent article in Time magazine, 73% of women say they have a negative view of Donald Trump. Is anybody surprised? $132 million has been spent so far on negative ads by candidates. I read of exit interviews of our primary this week. Why did you vote for Trump? Answer, I can't stand Hillary. Question, why did you vote for Hillary? I can't stand Trump. I mean, we should all care about this. Our democracy, it's messy, it's boisterous, it's inefficient, it's frustrating, but it's the best in the world. And we need to care enough to perpetuate this wondrous form of government and to participate fully in the process. It's our civic duty. And of course, many of our religious traditions teach us that we are responsible for the quality of life of the place in which we reside and being part of the political process. And let me add, for those of you who are students of history, you might recall that in societies where the democratic process is giving way to military regimes and despots, the minority populations have suffered disproportionately. If you are a religious minority, a racial, ethnic minority, or a minority because of your sexual preference, you need to care, and care a lot. Indiana is in its bicentennial year. 200 years ago, we became a state, 1816. During that year and the decades that followed, when the United States was a brand new country, a country in formation, the slavery issue was paramount. The War of 1812 had just ended, in which Tecumseh of Indiana fought on the British side. The United States had just survived the burning of the White House. IU was founded in 1820. Indiana went bankrupt in the mid-1800s. These were the topics that dominated conversations of the day. People cared. Today, what do we talk about at cocktail parties? Batman versus Superman? Masters golf tournament? Game of Thrones? The Kardashians? Indiana ranked, I am informed, 49th in voter turnout in the last general election. This is an embarrassment of the first order. Not enough people care around here. So I'm asking you, what about you? Our finest and best educated, the leaders of our future. Do you care? Do you? When Tyler was 5 years old, he asked me a riddle. Why didn't the skeleton cross the road? It was because he had no guts. Let's talk about guts. Let's talk about courage. Specifically, the courage to engage in political dialogue and to demand a major role in the political process. Actions that may put you crossways with your parents, your religious leaders, your friends. But you are suited to do this, and your active participation is desperately needed to preserve our democracy and way of life. You must have guts to make tough decisions, courage to act in uncomfortable situations, guts to cross the road. Our IU campus presents stunning examples of the exercise of courage. How many of you stayed in McNutt at one time? So you probably saw the picture of Paul McNutt. He was our governor in 1932. He was considered a front-runner for the 1936 presidential nomination until fellow Democrat Franklin D. Roosevelt opted to run for re-election. But McNutt had courage. He was a rising politician when a worried Roosevelt, in an effort to sideline him from the American political scene in 1937, appointed him High Commissioner of the Philippines, a largely ceremonial position. but the High Commissioner could issue visas, the right to allow entry into the Philippines. Now, the war in Europe was being waged, and it came to the attention of McNutt that many displaced European citizens were in danger of losing their lives under the fascist regimes. McNutt recognized the dangerous position of these hapless people. He worked with a military officer stationed in the Philippines named Dwight Eisenhower. And between the two of them and a few other members of this humanitarian group issued visas and saved the lives of more than 1,300 refugees. He did this at the risk of his political career in complete and utter disregard of the orders from the Immigration Department in Washington and the President of the United States. Our own President McRobbie is another in a long line of courageous Hoosiers and with strong ties to the university. Last year, he announced the launch of the most ambitious research program in IU history, the Grand Challenges Research Program. We will invest up to $300 million over 5 years to address some of the most urgent challenges facing Indiana and the world, such as global water supplies, availability of energy, infectious diseases, harnessing the power of and protecting big data, and climate change. As it relates to our issue today, President McRobbie is an outspoken and staunch defender of academic freedom, a highly charged issue of global interest related to issues of censure and economic boycott. Congratulations to our president for his courage to promulgate and prosecute big ideas to defend the right to teach and learn on our campus. Congratulations on that, President McRobbie. He definitely dares. So what about our 2016 graduates? I'll ask you, do you dare? Everybody, do we all dare? Do we? We're counting on you. Counting on you to follow the examples of Paul McNutt and President McRobbie and many others, to advocate, to lead, to take your place. But let me give you first a stern warning. Seek the truth before you take action. Read, listen, think. One of the most important things that a great university teaches its students is how to think, not what to think. Because new and innovative discoveries constantly advance our understanding, and because technology today allows for swift dissemination of new information, you will find that much of that stuff that you had to learn is gone. It's outdated. However, the critical thinking skills, which you might have been taught, the how of thinking, will serve you well. Remember always to ask, what is your evidence? And not simply to accept a statement as factual without thinking critically about it. Whatever your position is on an issue, that's not as important as your participation. One of the reasons that a marriage of religion and politics is fraught with danger is that these two universes employ very different languages to describe the world. For the former, there's evil and sin and uncompromising rules of conduct and eternal damnation for transgressions. However, at the very heart of politics is compromise and negotiation with an opponent who may be mistaken, may be misinformed, or may be just plain wrong, but in any event has not incurred the wrath of a vengeful God. If you believe hijacked religion can have a corrosive effect on our civic life because it creates an uncompromising and intolerant political atmosphere, speak up and speak out to those who interpret the Bible to rationalize bigoted behavior toward our fellow man. Now, on the other hand, if you feel that our country was founded, thank you. On the other hand, if you feel that our country was founded on biblical principles, a nation under God, and that any limit to the freedom of religion, regardless of its effect on others, is unwarranted, then okay, advocate, participate. If you're convinced that Hillary Clinton is the only candidate with real experience, having served as Senator and Secretary of State, and the only candidate who can be trusted at the helm of this nation, participate in the political process and support her. If you feel like Hillary Clinton is a scandal dog Democrat with whom you cannot relate, and her presidency will set ethics back another generation, let the world know. Your position, as I mentioned, is not quite as important as your participation. If Donald Trump is your idea of a perfect candidate because he speaks his mind and is unencumbered by normal political restraints and thus can take this country in a new and positive direction, campaign for him. If Donald Trump is perceived by you to be a reckless amateur whose only foreign policy is, I'm going to bomb the you-know-what out of ISIS, be passionate about your position, and I see you are. If you're inspired by Bernie Sanders, are you? Or do you think he's going to bankrupt the country with all that free stuff he's handing out? And what about this Religious Freedom Restoration Act? Was it necessary to protect our religious liberty? If you think so, let's hear your voice. If you believe that RFRA tramples on the rights of the gay and transgender community under cover of righteous religion, then okay, let's hear that point of view as well. Speak out. Now look, I'm not just talking to you poli-sci people or law school grads. It doesn't make any difference to me whether your degree is from our College of Arts and Science, our School of Education, or optometry. Even it's from the Jacob School of Music. Sing out. Sing out loud and strong. The world needs to hear your voices. Billionaire Thomas Steyer gets it. Through his political advocacy group, Next Gen Climate, he will spend at least $25 million to encourage you, the young voters in this country, to be active and vote. He stated what is obvious to all of us. Young people aren't as engaged in the electoral process. Steyer's big issue is climate, and he wants to defeat those who deny the existence of human climate change, human-caused climate change. That's okay with me. Whatever your issue, get involved. Your country needs you. The system is really not broken. It's worked for a long time. But one of the reasons why we're in a pickle we are today is that not enough of us are involved. I mean, really involved. While hundreds of thousands of decent citizens sit on the sidelines, we must deal with the limited choice we have before us. Does anybody agree with me we have limited choices today? So I charge you with this burden. Muster the courage, enter the fray. Our interest as citizens is not high enough and often enough to protect our democracy and the life that we hold so dear. And it's your responsibility to fill that void. Promise yourselves. Promise that you will believe in yourself. Have courage. Use the education that IU has given you and dare. Attend rallies, attend protests, vote, lobby, engage in vigorous but civil debate. Raise your voices. Support your favorite candidates who run for office. Run for office yourself. Promise all this to yourself. Never underestimate the power of your voice. If we can all re-energize this political process, we can ensure this country's vibrant democracy will endure. Will you humor me for a minute? Please stand. I mean, you've stood 3 or 4 times for everybody else. Stand once for me. Now, if you made a promise to be active and engage, stamp your feet. Stamp your feet, stamp your feet. Let's let everybody know that the class of 2016 intends to, what we intend to do. Stamp your feet for our country, for the United States of America. And while you're stamping your feet and while you're standing, let me just say, remember where we got this fine education. Whether you received scholarship funds or not, realize that your fine education was made possible in a large part by donors to IU. Justice requires that you contribute as much to society as you've drawn from it. Kind of balance the books, so to speak. So in the midst of your success, think about our school and help us perpetuate and continue to elevate this great institution. I'm proud of what you have accomplished, and I'm proud of this school, and I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you.